Welcome, everyone. Let's begin our lesson for today by going over the learning goals and success criteria. First, what are we learning? We're learning how to determine whether a function is positive or negative. How are we learning it? Through the function sign charts notes and the function sign charts assignment. When can we use this information? To examine financial statements for businesses to determine times of profit and times of debt. How do you know you learned it? By getting a score of 4 on the function sign charts assignment. Now let's take a look at our agenda for today. We will begin by going over the learning goals and success criteria. While we do that, you'll fill out your Get It Started. Once you've completed your Get It Started, we'll go over it together and answer any questions that you may have. Next, we'll do our weekly raffle. After that, we'll go over the function sign charts notes, and then I'll give you time to complete the function sign charts assignment on Desmos. Once you've completed the assignment, we'll go over it together and answer any questions that you may have. At the end of class, we'll go back over our learning goals and success criteria while you fill out your Before You Go. Your only homework for tonight is to continue working on the reasoning with features of function study guide and any incomplete assignments that you may have. Let's take a look now at the function sign charts notes. The notes begin with the learning goals and success criteria. Now let's talk about positive and negative functions. And we're not really talking about positive and negative functions as a whole. We're talking about the intervals where these things occur. So functions are said to be positive on a given interval when the range of the function, or the y values, is above the x-axis. So when the graph is showing above the x-axis, that's where the function is positive. Now they're negative on a given interval when the range is below the x-axis. So what does this look like? Well, we have a graph here, and notice my graph goes here, it passes through the x-axis, comes down, it starts to come back up, changes again and becomes above the x-axis. So in this case, we would say that the positive intervals are the green sections. So here, the graph is above. Even though it's going downward, it's still above the x-axis. So up until this point right here, it's positive. Then once it hits this point, it starts to become negative all the way until it hits this point again. Once it hits this point, now it's positive again. The purple area would be considered the negative intervals, where it goes below the x-axis. So even though right here it changes direction and starts going back up, it's still negative until it reaches this point where it actually crosses the x-axis and starts to work above. So now how do we determine where an interval is positive and negative? Well, if we look at this graph here, we have a graph where it is negative here all the way from negative infinity all the way up until it gets to negative 4. And then it becomes positive after that. Now, over on this side, we have it being negative from negative 2 all the way until this point here. We'll call it negative 1. It may not be exactly negative 1, but it's close. So it's negative from negative infinity to negative 4. And then from negative 2 to negative 1. And then it becomes positive from negative 4 to negative 2. And from negative 1 to positive infinity. So that's how we can use graphs to determine the intervals on which a function is positive or negative. Now, what is a sign chart? A sign chart is used to determine on which intervals a polynomial function is positive or negative. So we talked about positive and negative intervals. Now we're going to use a graphical display to show where it's positive and where it's negative and when it changes between them. So the top of the sign chart represents the positivity of the function. So is it positive or negative? So we have positive, 0, negative, 0, positive. So that means it goes from positive to positive, and these are my x-intercepts. The middle of the sign chart represents the change in positivity, so it's just this little graph look here. It almost looks like a number line. And then we're going to put lines here to represent the x-intercepts. And the bottom represents the values. So where did these occur? So maybe I have an x-intercept at 1 and 3. So it was positive until it hit 1. Then it crossed and went negative. And then it crossed again here at 3 and then went back positive. So that's what this sign chart is telling me. So how do I create a sign chart from the information that I have on this? Well, I know that it's going to change 3 times. So it has an x-intercept here and then an asymptote here that's going to change things. and then another x-intercept. So I'm going to go ahead and put these values in. So at -4, -2, and -1, that's where things change. So I was negative to start, so that negative goes here. Then it turned positive, so I put a positive here. Then on the other side of -2, I started negative and then turned positive, so it goes just like this. So this would be the sign chart that represents this. Now there's a video here that shows you how you can use Desmos to create your sign charts. So go ahead and watch that video now. Let's take a look now at how to create a sign chart using Desmos. So we're given a graph here and we're told where it crosses and we need to create a sign chart. So first of all, we need to break this up and show where the roots are, where it changes and goes from positive to negative. So I can see that that's at 1 and 3. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw a line here and a line here. And I'm going to call this 1 and this 3. So all I did was write on it by clicking and holding it down and drawing my stuff in. So now I have 1 and 3. I know that at 1, I'm even. I'm not positive or negative. So I'm neither positive nor negative, so I'll put a 0 there. Now on the left side of 1, I am positive. I'm positive all the way up until I hit 1, so I'm going to put a plus sign here. Then between 1 and 3, I'm below the x-axis, so I'm going to call that negative. So this is negative, minus sign. And then on the right side of 3, I go back to being positive, so I put a plus sign. So this is how you can create a sign chart using Desmos. Let's talk now about how to sign in to Desmos to complete your work. So what we're going to do is you're going to click on the link to go to the assignment, and it should take you to a page that looks kind of like this. And right here where it says sign in with Google, we're going to click there. And it's going to pop up with our email accounts. You're going to click on your school email account, and it should already have you logged in because you should have already been logged in using Google Classroom. From there, I'm just going to click start the activity, and it will take me into the assignment and allow me to begin. So that's how you will log in to Desmos using Google. Let's take a look now at the function sign charts assignment. The assignment begins with the learning goals and success criteria. If we scroll down, there's a link here to take us to the Desmos activity. Go ahead and click on that link, and it should take you to a page that looks like this. We'll go ahead and click start the activity. The assignment begins with the learning goals and success criteria. We'll go ahead and click next. And now we're going to compare graphs, equations, and sign charts. So in this case, we have a graph here that looks like this, and we're going to write an equation for it. Well, we don't have to know exactly what it looks like, but we're going to come close. So we have something like y equals, and we know that it has an x-intercept at 1, so that would be x minus 1. And then it also has an x-intercept at 3, so x minus 3. So something like that would work. And then we're going to do a sign chart. So we know that we have two x-intercepts. One of them is at 1. One of them is at 3. So those are our x-intercepts. On the left side of 1, we are positive, so we put a plus sign here. At 1, we're at 0. And then we cross and go below. So this is negative between 0 and 3. And then at 3, we go back to 0 again. And then on the right side of 3, we are positive, so we put a plus sign. So that's how you do that. Then we'll click next. Now the next one gives us an equation and asks us to create a graph and then create the sign chart. So we can see that we're going to have an x-intercept at -1 and -3. And multiplicity of 1 at both, so it should look something like that because it's going to pass through. So now we create our sign chart. This would be -3 and -1. We are positive on the left side. We are negative between and positive on the right side. And then at those points, we are at 0. And we'll go ahead and click next. And we'll keep doing these until we get to the end. At the end of the assignment, you'll go ahead and go back to your Google form and click Next. This will take you to your Before You Go. Go ahead and fill out your Before You Go and then submit your work on Google Classroom.